Well, hello, my name is Laurie Ann Smith, and this is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, the continuation. We're just looking at the ASCA's Survivor to Thriver manual. It's a workbook, it's a manual. You can get it from the ASCA. Just go to www.ascasupport.org, and it's free to use. You can read it from their website, you can download it, you can order a physical copy of it if you want to. I thought it was very helpful for me in my healing journey when I started many years ago. And so we've just been looking at it for people, just in case, you had no idea really what it was and weren't sure about whether it'd be helpful for you or not. So that's what we've been looking at for a few weeks now. We're finishing it up. We're on the last step. Actually, the next to the last step. We're on step 20. And out of 21 steps. So it's actually a step manual. They use it for their meetings. And but I actually started using this manual long before I started attending the ASCA meetings. So that's Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a more centered program. So that's what I'm talking about this morning. Topics of abuse can be very disturbing, especially first thing in the morning. It's like, is this really what I want to listen to? You have to make that choice for yourself. I'm not going to be talking about too many graphic things here or anything. It's just that this is about healing journey stuff. And if you're sensitive to the topics of child abuse, you might want to just go watch something else, because really you wouldn't be hurting my feelings at all. I do this thing first thing in the morning, because I never know throughout the day what I'm going to be doing. So this kind of locks me in to get this done at a certain time. So first thing in the morning is a little difficult for most people to listen to stuff like this. And for me, I grew up abused, so I'm totally okay looking at stuff like this. So it's no problem for me. But if you're a survivor of abuse, you're just starting your healing journey, you really want to make sure you're safe enough before you do anything like watch something like this. Just do a safety check and just be like, do I feel strong enough to listen to this today? Am I feeling vulnerable? Do I feel like this is going to bother me for the rest of the day? Because any kind of information like this can trigger a survivor of abuse, right? And you don't want to have a bad day and spiral down and maybe hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, or just have a miserable day. That's no good. So make sure you're safe enough to listen to this stuff. And if not, you can always watch it another time, or you can read the manual another time when you're feeling safer, stronger, more able to handle the material. You have to make that decision for yourself. And only you can do that, right? So you're the only one that knows how safe you are and how this type of information will affect you, right? So that's what we're looking at. And like I said, it's not a fun topic. Definitely not. But I have to face this stuff whether I do this video here on YouTube or not. So this is my life, is healing from abuse. Right? It's not my whole life. It's just part of it. And so I'm okay looking at this stuff. And so, but you have to make that decision for yourself, right? So we left off at step 20, actually finished step 19, which was a big step, actually. Man, that's really rough. Step 20 is page 111. And in the Survivor to Thriver workbook, it says, I see myself as a thriver in all aspects of life, love, work, parenting, and play. So they say here, your journey on the road to recovery is almost over. This is like if you do the 21 steps and you just keep doing them and keep doing them. And so, however, a year later, 2 years later, however many years it takes, right? There's no set time when a person just says, oh, in 2 years from now, on this date, I'll be healed. It really doesn't work that way. But, progressing through these steps over and over again, sort of making progress as we see, okay, I've made progress in that area. That's good. I still need to work on that, or whatever these issues are. By the time you hit step 21, maybe the last time around, when you have made so much progress, this is probably where you'll be. So this is, you've progressed from being a survivor of the abuse to becoming a thriver, someone who finds joy and satisfaction in many aspects of life. And by now, you probably have created a new family or support system for yourself that banishes the isolation and shame you felt in the past. You can readily give of yourself to others and accept nurturance and consideration in return. So this is the step in which your new self comes together into a personality that expresses your full essence in the world. Sounds good to me. I obviously haven't got there yet. That sounds great, just being comfortable with who we are. Basically, that's what that's saying. Allowing people in our lives that are nurturing and people that are good to us and we're good to them and just enjoying life. Sounds good. Absolutely. Intimate relationships are now infused with trust, sexual sharing, mutual self-reliance. You can communicate your needs, allow healthy mutual dependency, and resolve conflicts, free of the concerns and self-doubt of the past. Your new self-acceptance allows you to be less critical of others, while your new self-awareness helps you identify hurtful situations before they cause damage. You can gauge situations accurately and share your feelings as appropriate without losing control of them. And so this is a step, where somebody's far enough along in their healing journey that this stuff would be possible, right? And for many people, it is. I'd say a lot of that's where I'm at. That's what I'm saying. I'm on the tail end of my healing journey. I'm nowhere near where I used to be when I first started. It was horrible. That's why I say I know what it's like to be on that other side of this stuff. And I've come a long, long way. But it's taken me a long time. Like I said, it's taken a lot longer than I, would have hoped for. And I still have work to do. So I'm kind of like, well, I got to get on it. I want to get to the root of this stuff. So, because I want to feel good. That's the issue. I think everybody wants to feel good about their life and about themselves and about who they are, And so by the time we hit this step so many years later, this is very much possible. I know people who've been on their healing journeys for many years and got to that point where they were like, I'm done. I feel good. Life is good. And they no longer are having to deal with the stuff that they had to deal with to get there. See, so this is the issue. It's doable. And there's just no time frame. You just don't know how long it's going to take. And sometimes people will go see a counselor or therapist. And, I think that can be helpful, really helpful. I didn't trust counseling or therapists, myself, but now looking back at it, I know that there's good people out there. Not everyone is out to hurt me. And so, not everyone has diabolical, intentions. Not everyone is an evil bugger. So the issue is you have to find the good people, right? So I know there's good therapists and counselors out there that really do care, would never, intentionally want to hurt anybody. They're just trying to help people, right? But then you also know there's those other ones out there too, because there's always a mixed bag of people that are not good at what they do. So that's why when you get a counselor or therapist, just make sure they understand child abuse issues and that they've got your best interest at heart, right, in mind. It says by now you're able to avoid exploitative job situations and can identify and pursue appropriate promotion opportunities. You are no longer mired in office politics or oppressed by bosses or authority figures. You can develop your career in a way that fosters your interests and talents and accept the financial and emotional rewards that follow. If you find yourself facing a dead end in your career, you can make the necessary changes to keep yourself vital and interested in your work. Instead of experiencing your work life as a strain, you now feel challenged and satisfied by your job. I mean, this is kind of interesting because I think all of this stuff is, what they're talking about there, job stuff, career stuff, being sort of something that somebody who's been abused in their lifetime, that it would be such an issue, but it really is because it's all interpersonal stuff, dealing with coworkers, dealing with bosses, people in authority over us. Maybe we're the authority and just don't want to lead because we just have a fear of that. Any number of things. People, obviously, everybody's different. Everybody's in a different situation. No two lives are the same. We're all going through different things. So some of this stuff may relate to your situation. Some of it won't. Actually, none of it really relates to mine anymore. I'm 55. Like I can't even get a job, so I'm like, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not so much thinking about it. I'm just kind of like, I just don't want to be homeless. I'm like, oh well, just have to roll with it. It's when people don't want to hire 55-year-olds really, unless you are like a top manager or something like that, where you're coming in and you're going to run the show at that age. They kind of expect people who are older, to do those type of roles. So when you're applying for regular jobs, they're kind of like, we can get a 30-year-old to do that who has a degree. Why would we want you, a 55-year-old bag? So this is the issue. It's kind of tough, right? Being this age, I have to reinvent myself. That's what I'm going to do. And I think I'm going to, instead of looking for the regular standard stuff, I think I'm going to branch out. I think I'm going to try to do something completely different um, with the rest of my days. Not going to be involving city life. I'm going to try to, because I do cook and I like cooking outdoors and I like being involved in the sort of adventurous stuff. So I'm going to maybe try to get into a resort type situation, very remote type thing. That's what I might do. We'll see, because they have a hard time keeping people at those places. And if somebody who's older, might have an opportunity. So we'll see. It says, if you have children, your new sense of self has brought you a new identity as a loving, caring parent. You accept your children as people and raise them to respect themselves and others. You foster their self-esteem by giving them appropriate amounts of power and control and protect them from harm by setting clear and consistent limits. You're able to discipline them by using the positive elements of your relationship with them to hold them accountable when they fall short of the values you set for your family. This is the time to acknowledge that your family's intergenerational chain of abuse has ended with you. This is if it's an issue where you're abused in a familial type situation, like myself. Not all child abuse happens within the home. Many abuse survivors have had wonderful parents. It's just the abuse happened outside the home. So may not apply, right? Like some of this stuff just doesn't apply to everybody. They said you can continue to grow together, allowing your relationship to mature into a seasoned adult-to-adult friendship that can provide joy and affiliation for the rest of your lives. That's what you'd hope for if you have children. You see, this doesn't even has nothing to do with me because I don't have any children or grandchildren. See, so I just read that and I'm like, whatever. It doesn't apply to me. It's kind of like lots of stuff in these manuals and books and stuff won't apply to all of us, right? So they're just giving some sort of generalizations of where we should be in our life. Once we've hit step 20, things should really start to be looking much better. And would I say things look better in my life? I mean, right now, I'm just one person, right? The issue is like COVID-19 has us all messed up. It's messed a whole lot of people up. Some people still have their same jobs. Some people still have their same companies still going. But there's been a large group of people who've been out of work with no hope of getting their job back because the company's closed. So many jobs lost. So many people struggling right now. So this manual kind of doesn't apply to like COVID-19 days. It really doesn't. Well, this is a whole new ball game we're involved in here. And this is just kind of like survival time. How am I going to make it? And it's tough for people all around the world. Like I said, it's just an absolutely insane time, COVID-19. And so this manual is talking about maybe a time where it's not COVID-19 days, and there's still lots of jobs out there, and there's still, people are still sort of doing a little bit better, right? It's pretty rough. But by step 20, we should really start to be making headway, I guess, is what they're saying, in whatever is going on in our life. Personal relationships, taking better care of ourselves, you know, enjoying life, actually finding some enjoyment, which to me was a big deal because I didn't want to spend the rest of my days. I watched my mother do it. So I watched my mom destroy her life as well as her children's lives. And she just, she never ever found any peace or happiness. And I didn't want to go to my grave like that. I'm like, I seriously do not want to emulate my parents. Not in any way, shape, or form. I try to do the exact opposite because my parents were my abusers. So it's like, and my brother. So, I just try to do the exact opposite. It's like, no, I want to enjoy life. I really do. But then that means I have to make choices so that I can enjoy life. And all of us are different. So what a good life for me may not be the good life for somebody else. We're all different. We all have different needs and wants, desires. And it's kind of like growing up in an abuse situation, being abused, we may have not even thought about what we wanted. It's kind of like, what do I want? I have to sit down and think about these things. What do I want? Do I want a career? Is it a career issue? Do I want a family? What's going to make me happy? What's going to bring me joy in this life? We certainly deserve it. Coming from abuse, let me tell you, if anybody deserves to find happiness and joy in life, it's people who've been abused. We certainly do. We deserve that, just like everybody else. And so that's why this step is kind of like saying, hey, by this time, you make so much progress in your healing journey. So if you're just starting on your healing journey and things aren't looking well, and you're just like, I'm just trying to survive, man. Um, Keep that in mind. That's the goal. That step 20, step 21. That's the goal. You want to reach for that eventually, right? Because that's the whole purpose of being on a healing journey is to finally finish it off, not to stay in a perpetual healing journey. You know what I mean? That's no fun. It's like there has to be something better. There definitely does. And there has to be a finalization where it's like, you know what? To the best of my ability, I've done it. Yeah, because I know survivors of really horrible abuse that have done this, and they're not lying to themselves. They're totally honest, and they're just like, hey, I've spent enough time, doing all that stuff and doing the healing work, and they feel good, and that really gives me hope because I'm like, hey, it's doable. That's good. I'm not quite there, but I'm close. So this is the issue. It's doable. And so otherwise, why would a person bother starting a healing journey or even bothering to? And I think that's where my mom was. My mom was just she was so lost, really lost. She just had no clue that there could be anything better. She was abused as a child, and my dad abused her. She just became an abuser, you know, and she just let her whole life be destroyed. At the end of her days, I mean, it was sad sitting there with her on her deathbed, really, and you know, she had never found any peace. She never found any goodness in life, and I thought, I am not doing that, man. I don't care what it takes. I'm not doing that. This is a waste of a life. This is the only one that we have on this earth. Do we really want to spend it wasting it? Not me. You know what I'm saying? So, and I mean, hey, we can only do what we can do. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's not like I can go out and do all of my dreams because I don't have the wherewithal to do that. So I have to find these little things, these little things in the day-to-day life that actually keep me going. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like that's what it's really all about. We can put those big goals out there and say, okay, 5 years, 10 years from now, what do I want to be doing? And that's always nice to work towards those big goals, um, have those big dreams. And there's nothing wrong with that. But do we still have to do the day to day? It's kind of like, what's going to bring me peace today? What's going to make life worth living today? And we need to build those things up around us so that we can enjoy life. It shouldn't just be all about all this horrible stuff. And because if you were abused as a child and grew up in abuse, um, quite often that's what life was all about: misery and sorrow and grief and pain and horrible stuff. So then as an adult, I have charge over my life. And I'm like, okay, I'm no longer being abused and none of my abusers are around me anymore. So how do I want to live? Not that same old way I was living before, that I was forced to live in a horrible situation, you know? So that's what I'm saying. It's up to us to make those choices. It really is. Nobody can do that for us, unfortunately. I always had a hope and a dream of winning the lottery because I'm not wealthy. I was like, man, if I could just win the lottery. Me and my husband, we always played the lottery because neither of us were well off. And we're like, we just need to win that $1 million lottery. We weren't even looking for 30, 40 million or 200 million. We were just looking for like the 1 million because you can live off the interest of that. We were like, man, we'd be living high off the hog, man. Um, you know, but that's wishing and dreaming, and that's not reality. My reality is I probably will never have much money. It doesn't look like it. So money, I've never really looked for money. The money doesn't bring me happiness. For me, it's about having peace in my life and knowing who I am and not accepting abuse from anybody. And, I'm still working on boundary stuff, like I said, and working on not allowing people to mistreat me and being assertive and standing up for myself. That's a big issue for me. But for me, it's not about money and all of that stuff. See, but for some people it is. And so you have to set those goals for yourself and decide what you really want that's going to bring you happiness. Because suffering as a child like that, it's bad enough if you think about the children who are sick, who their parents love them, they really do, but their child's got cancer, childhood cancer type stuff or whatever, and the parents are just love that child, but that child's sick. bad enough being a child growing up in that, being sick and not being able to enjoy things, die at an early age. That's horrible, you know. But when you think about children who are abused, I mean, that's bad. That's really bad. There's no love. There's no care. There's no, it's kind of like we need to set that up for ourselves later. Find out what's going to bring us peace in our life. What's going to make us to bring that sort of enjoyment. So that's what this step really is all about. It's kind of like towards the end of your healing journey. And you can start along the way, and that's what I did. I started actually before I started my healing journey, I started this stuff, making better choices for myself because I didn't want to end up dead in a drug overdose or because I was always kind of thinking, well, if I die from drug use, whatever, it doesn't matter because I didn't care about my life and I didn't care if I lived or died or anything like that. I was in so much pain. It just internalized pain from being abused as a child. So in my 20s, I got off the drugs, right? Very smart, early 20s, and decided I had dreams. I'm like, I want to do life. I don't want to just have it be wasted. And within what good was it all for? It's kind of like at the end of my mom's road, basically, that's what that was. You know, what was that all about? Just about abuse. That's what it was for my mom. And I thought, I'm not doing that. I want to do things. I want to see the world. I want to do things. So I did do some traveling as much as I could. Actually been really blessed to be able to do a lot of traveling. Some people say lucky. Whatever. The issue is like I've been able to see a lot of places for somebody who's poor, who's never had a lot of money. It's really just amazing that I've been able to see the places that I've been able to see because, I haven't had a lot of money to work with in my lifetime. And I've been able to see most of North America, a lot of it. So, and I even got to Hawaii and I got to Ireland and I've had a lot of my dreams come true. And I still want to see stuff. I still want to get out there and enjoy life. And this is the thing. I didn't want to let the abuse destroy my adult life, right? But I had to start making better choices for myself. And I started, before I even started my healing journey, like I said, I started making better choices for myself. But I still didn't want to deal with the abuse. That was something that I just did not want to deal with. And until the age of 42, like I said, I didn't do anything until the 44. I finally started working on my healing journey at 44. So that just tells you it took a long time for me to even think about getting help. All this stuff was just stuffed down and I didn't want to deal with it. Who does? Nobody does, right? The issue is man, that's stuff that somebody did to me. That's not even stuff I did to myself. That's stuff that somebody did to me that was almost destroying me. That's not okay. You know what I mean? And I'm like, wow, this is terrible. I really need help. I watched my brothers kill themselves. I knew why they killed themselves. I grew up in the same home they did. It's kind of like, you know, I saw the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, I knew why my siblings were the way they were. We all grew up in the same home with the same parents, right? In the same abuse. So it's like, you know, I thought there's no way I really wanted to have a better life. And for me, like I said, a better life just meant nobody abusing me anymore, peace in my heart, peace in my life. My walls are peace. I don't have anybody abusing me, running me down. You know, the people I allow in my life treat me really well, and I treat them the same. It's great. It really is. I love it. I love peace. It's wonderful because I grew up in such a horrible, horrific situation where there was no peace, man. It was sheer evil, is what it was. So it's kind of like, that's what I was looking for, right? And so you have to find you have to find what's going to make you happy, what's going to make you get excited about getting up in the morning and be like, I'm doing this life, man. I'm doing it. And I'm not going to let those abusers win this fight because I'm going to go and I'm going to have a good life, you know? And I'm not going to let all that abuse, whoever these abusers were that abused you, destroy the time that I have left. No way. You know what I mean? That's terrible. They already took a part of us. They took a huge part of us, by abusing us. And what we're going to just allow them to take the rest, even though they're long gone, wherever they are. You know what I mean? Or if they're not gone, they're just over there somewhere. Like we're going to allow that? No. That's what I'm saying. Like I had, hi Tessa. How are you? Oh, thank you. You know, this is the thing. It's been hard, and I just, so many people have lost so much, right? Not just me, and that's why I'm honest about this stuff because I know life is full of losses. It really is. But if that's the issue, we all know that's life. Life is hard, right? But that's what I'm saying. Does it be horrible all the time? You know, like for my mom, it was. She grew up abused, married my dad, and then stayed with him. I was like, we all tried to get her to leave. My older siblings tried to get her to leave my dad and divorce him when I was pretty well born. I mean, we're talking, they were telling her to divorce him before I was born, my older siblings. Then, even after I was 4 or 5 years old, they were still telling her to divorce him. And she stayed in that abusive relationship and was one of my abusers. So there you go, my main abuser. But the issue is you know that's all she knew, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. There's no way. No, I'm going to go out and have a good life. But until I dealt with my abuse stuff, it just wasn't going to happen, and that's the issue. It's taken a lot of time to go back and look at what the damage was and why I was doing what I was doing to sabotage my adult life, and not be able to have a good life because of the abuse. So until I faced it, it wasn't going to happen, and that's the whole issue of this whole child abuse stuff. Horrible, horrible. Um, for some people, they just can't do it. Like my sister, she just does denial, right? And that's the only way she can get through it. And I guess that's at some point she may decide to do a healing journey. She knows I'm on mine. She can watch these videos anytime she wants to. She's not part of my life because we're too toxic together, but which is too bad. But that's the truth of it. And so I'm sure she's watched a few of my videos and probably thought, well, whatever. Because we never got along anyway. You know what I mean? Me and my sister were like enemies big time. And it's like, even as adults, we're like enemies. That's no good. Kind of like, no, let's cut each other out here. We don't need to do that. You go have a nice life. I'll have a nice life over here. Man. It's too bad that we didn't come together and bond, but we never did. And we actually want to hurt each other all the time. So it's kind of like, no, 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 we can't do that. So it's too bad. But she sees my stuff. She knows I'm on a healing journey. I've been on it for a long time. And I mean, she could be on one too. How do I know? Maybe she's already done that. But the issue is like this stuff is until we're willing to face it and deal with it. What are the issues? What's holding me back? And being honest about it and be like, wow, what is holding me back? Okay, I was abused as a child, but like that was years ago. I mean, I'm that's a long time ago. So why is this stuff eating at my being? Why is this stuff eating at my gut? Why is this stuff eating at my mind? Why is this stuff doing why am I doing what I'm doing? This is kind of the question I had to ask myself because I always ended up at a suicidal ideation point, just being depressed and being so down. And I knew why I was down because I knew about, I knew what happened. The issue is like, I couldn't, you know, I for some reason, I could not allow myself to face this stuff, you know, until I finally thought, I'm going to get help. Like, obviously, I can't do this on my own. I need help. And just, watching my brothers take their own lives, I didn't watch them take their own lives, but just seeing how horrible their adult life was. And then in their mid 30s, they killed themselves. And I mean, I knew what they grew up in. That's the issue. That's why I was like, this stuff is not a mystery to me. My sister, it's a big mystery. She has no clue. She's in denial. She doesn't know what's going on. She's DID, right? So, the issue is I know what they went through, and I'm willing to say it. It wasn't okay, you know, what my parents put them through, put us through. But it wasn't okay that they went on to kill themselves either. And that's where I was like, okay, I need help, obviously, right? So, well, thank you, Tessa. Well, I appreciate it. And I mean, it's just, I'm just one person, right? And I just, sometimes by looking at somebody else's life and what they do, it's sort of like a light bulb will come on. That's how I'll watch other people's stuff and other survivor stuff, and I'll be like, a light bulb will come on. I'll be like, oh, I see. I was doing the same thing. You know what I mean? They're two different people, but it doesn't matter because it's like similar. We're sometimes doing similar things because of the abuse, right? So, hopefully they're helpful for people. But this is the issue, I just didn't want to do uh, denial, but I didn't want to face it either. This stuff is so hard, right? So until I did, I wasn't going to have a good life. So step 20 here towards the end of this manual really is describing for people just an overall thing of, at this point, we should be actually doing life and actually starting to enjoy it by this step. And this is definitely where I'm at. I've been here for quite a long time, actually, I would say. It was only the first few years that I was not anywhere close to this step 20, where I was dealing with a lot of really painful stuff. That's where I wrote my books and did all that early talking about all that stuff, because that stuff was so painful, so raw. But now I've worked through a lot of it and done that inner child healing work, which really helped me out with my Envision Mind program. So, I am much closer to this step 20 than I used to be, of course. But I've kind of been there for a while now. I'm enjoying life. And right now with COVID-19, who's enjoying much? I mean, this really sucks. COVID-19 has really messed everything up. And will things go back to the way they were? Probably not ever. This is a real problem. And so we got to find new ways then. It's kind of like, well, am I going to let this ruin the rest of my days? No. It's like, no, I refuse. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to keep doing the stuff that I know I can do, that I like doing, you know, and whatever these things are in your life, you know what I mean? I do enjoy life, and I enjoy friendships. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy communication with people, and that brings me a lot of joy and happiness. And I like music. I've always liked music. So I'm into the guitar, trying to learn guitar. And that's just fun. I really suck at it, but it doesn't matter. It's fun. And what else? I mean, I enjoy certain things in life. I don't just sit around in a pity party, feeling sorry for myself. What I do is recognize when I'm actually feeling something that I know I need to work on it. For instance, feeling kind of like, oh, some of the old feelings that I used to have, just being down or hard on myself or whatever, just thinking, oh, I can't do it. Then I have to go back and say, no, look at the progress we've made. I have to do this little self-talk thing. And it's kind of like, go back from where I was, taking a look at that and say, okay, where am I now? I've done really well, to maintain and to be able to get through this stuff. This is the issue. We got to count. We really need to look at the positives and look at the negatives too, a little bit too, to be honest with ourselves. But it's kind of like, don't just dwell on the negative stuff. Right? That's for me, because it's easy to do. So, instead of just dwelling on, the bad stuff, the horrible stuff, right? It's kind of like, well, I need to do something else, that's more positive, right? So our day, we're in charge of our day. We're also in charge of our life as human beings on the planet. And like I said, in whatever your situation is, because we're all in different situations and we're all dealing with different things, right? But at the end of the day, we have to say, wow, I did the best I could. That's all I can do. And that's what I do, because some days are just horrible and some days just throw curveballs at you. And you're just like, what the, and it's like, seriously, sometimes it's months of that. And you're like, what the, and I just, I'm just like, God, this sucks. And I'm honest, I'm just like, this really is just crap. And it's like, but it's kind of like, well, okay, but am I going to let that ruin all the progress that I've made? And I'm just going to let that ruin my life? That's like I said last year, because all last year I was concerned about being homeless, because I was very close several times. No money, government support gone. It's like, oh man, what am I going to do? No job. Nobody would hire me. I'm like, they still won't hire me. I'm like, whatever. Eventually I'll get a job somewhere. But I'm like, this sucks, What am I going to do? And I thought, well, I may end up homeless, right? And I thought, if I end up homeless, I'm just going to go have a good time. That's all I do. I am not going to let this ruin my life. I'm not. I don't care what's coming. I really don't. I've decided it really doesn't matter. Life is hard, and things happen. They do, and sometimes it's just horrible. But I've decided not to let any of that ruin the rest of my life. I'm not. I'll just get angry about it, feel the feelings, and be like, okay, now let's see what we can do with what we've got. And I think really that's what life is all about. because disasters happen, tragedies happen. Things come our way that we don't deserve it, but it's coming anyway. You know what I mean? And I think, well, why me? You know, so many people losing so much, people losing their homes and businesses, like I said, losing their lives, right? So this is the issue. It's kind of like, do I want to ruin the rest of my days? I have no idea how many days I have left. So step 20, I'm probably really close to that. I would say I'm there, still working on a few things. I'm well through my healing journey because my coping skills are much, much better than they used to be. And I mean, if I used to have crisis, one little thing would set me off, and I'd go into a pit of despair and want to kill myself. And I mean, it didn't take much, but that's because that was the only thing I could think of doing. It made me sense to me. It's kind of like I want out of the pain, man. But I started working through, looking at this stuff, dealing with the pain, doing the grief work, grieving my childhood, grieving what I went through as a child, which until I did that stuff, I wasn't going to get better. That's all there is to it. So I had to. It was hard work, like I said, it really was, and it wasn't fun. No, but however you decide to do it, whether you just feel like, wow, I need a therapist or a counselor, I can't do this on my own, or self-help group support, whatever. You know, um, we can have a good life. We really can. We don't have to let the abuse destroy what's left of our lives. And that's step 20. That's like, hey, I can find enjoyment in life. I can find, first of all, I have to love myself. And I've learned how to do that, which is just wonderful. I had to learn how to do that. And oh, Tessa, that's from, it's up at the top. I put it up there. It's a Survivor to Thriver workbook manual, Survivor to Thriver. It's ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse and More Center program. And it's free. You can use it. You can download it. You can read it on their website if you don't want to download it. And it's a 21-step program that they use, that we use in our group sessions. So, and it's it goes from just beginning, looking at the abuse, what you went through, doing an assessment of what you went through, all the way through to the 21 steps of finally healing and enjoying life, and loving ourselves and loving others, and really opening up and being honest and letting people see us for who we are and loving ourselves for who we are. And this kind of stuff. And I think that's just wonderful, because so many people who are abused they have a hard time loving who they are, right? I know I was there. I used to have a lot of self-loathing and a lot of just hatred, hatred for life, hatred for myself, hatred for what happened to me as a child, hatred for what other people do to other people, just a lot of hatred. And I started to really work on learning how to love myself, because I wasn't loved as a child. Well, I wasn't accepted by my parents. My parents didn't love any of their children. And so I just took on that. Rejection was so hard for me. And I think it was for all of my siblings. That's why we all were really screwed up in life. And the abuse, just the horrific stuff that we went through. And so learning how to love myself was probably the best thing I could have ever done. And it's kind of like it says, you know what? I love myself. So all of that abuse that I went through and I was put through, and all of those wounds and all of that horrible stuff that they did to me, I love myself. You know what I'm saying? They didn't love me. They treated me like a horrible, horrible nothingness. You know what I mean? I don't know how you could do that to a child, but they did to all their children. But the issue is whatever abuse you've come through, you have to learn how to love yourself. You really do. If you want to enjoy life and you want to have a decent life with other people, it's so important. Because the reason being is if there's no room in your heart for love for yourself, you can't really love anybody else, really. You can't love life. How can a person love life but hate themselves? Right? And I had self-hatred big time, and I hated my life. Well, of course, growing up abused. I mean, who wants that? And then the choices that I made, and the choices that were made for me, not being able to have children, I couldn't have looked after them anyway. But I'm just saying, had I had the opportunity, that was taken from me. You know what I'm saying? So these things, they're hard. They're really hard to deal with. But the thing is learning how to love myself. I mean, I really had to go through and do the work. I'm like, I do love myself. I do, I'd do these self affirmations and I'd be like, okay, it says, okay, I love myself. I'd be reading it and I'd be like, not really. But, after a while, through my healing journey of starting to do this stuff and starting to go in and rescue my inner wounded children who were abused. So wherever a person's abused, that's where the trauma sits, and in the limbic system in the brain. That's the issue. And you can't reach it with words. It's got to be reached with pictures. So because it's a limbic system, it doesn't use words. This part up here in the brain that stores the trauma memories. So I had to go through and rescue myself from all these wounded places of woundedness where I was abused, right? Because I wasn't ever saved or cuddled or loved or held. It was just letting the abuse. So I was just left wherever I was laying. That's where I was. So I'm not going into any real details here. But the issue is I had to go and save myself from all of that stuff, right? And pick myself up and get myself to safety inside my brain. But then what I did is start working on loving myself and loving those wounded parts of myself, those wounded children that I was, who really needed love. I mean, they needed care. They needed to be held. They needed to be told, nice things, that they didn't deserve that, and that person can't, mom can't ever hurt them again. Dad can never hurt them again. I mean, I literally had to go and talk to myself. You know what I'm saying? People be like, that's insane, but actually it works. It really does. Because no one was going to do that for me. Obviously, you can't go back and change the past, right? The past is the past. Look, I mean, how many years ago? A long time ago. I'm 55 now. I started my healing journey in 44, but I didn't do any of this healing, this inner child work until I would say about 2013. So that's about 8 years ago. So, I mean, I would have been 47, right? So 47 years old, sitting there doing inner child work. But, you know, it made a huge difference because that's what I was screaming for. My little wounded inner children, all these little Lauries that I used to be at these different ages, was screaming for help, was screaming for love, was screaming for somebody's got to love me. You know, somebody's got to love me. And obviously, my mom didn't, my dad didn't, and my family was really so dysfunctional, they really couldn't. And so, like my siblings and stuff. And so I had to do that. I'm the only one that could do that. Who else could do it for me? Like nobody. I had to go in and find myself with all these places and these houses where we used to live, of this wounding where I was wounded, abused, let's just say. And I had to go and grab myself and say, you know what? And just hold myself, my little, I could still see myself because I know what I look like at that age. And I would just hold myself in this inner meditation. And I would just be like, I love you. You did not deserve that, and they can't hurt you anymore. You're safe. I'm the adult now. You're me. I'm you. And I'm the adult now, and we're fine. And until I did that work, I was going to be suffering on with that inner rage of why, you know, why did they treat me like that? And they should have loved me. They shouldn't have hurt me. That's terrible. You know what I'm saying? So that was a huge bulk of my healing journey done right around 2013, 2014. And then I was obviously still working on stuff. Did those Born in Hell videos and set that website up for around 2016. But it's 2021. I've made huge progress. Like I said, like it doesn't happen overnight. Not for me. That's what I was wishing I could just snap my fingers and be like, oh, I'm all better. Yay. That's great. I love myself. I feel great. But see, that's okay. That works for a day until something triggers me. That's what I'm saying. That's how, you can try. I could try to be in denial all I wanted to, just go out and have a good day. I used to do that because I've always been able to hold a job, and I like people. People find me funny for some reason. And the issue is that if I go out with people and people, have people laughing and laughing and laughing because for some reason they think I'm funny or whatever. But the issue, and I like to laugh. Humor is fun for me. I love humor and I love laughing, joking around. Kind of like to be sort of the life of the party. I'm not an introvert really. I do like my quiet time, so I'm all quite off. I actually really like my space. but I'm not really an introvert. I do like being around people. So the thing is people would never know I was struggling, suffering from this stuff. They had no clue because I can go out and keep a job, no problem, you know. And this is where I was at for my whole adult life until I started working on this stuff. I thought I was fine. I was like, oh yeah, I can hold a job. I'm doing good. I got friends. You know, have go out, life of the party, have a few drinks, whatever. Come home, sit on the couch at night, want to kill myself. See, because when I was by myself, that's when all the abuse memories would start coming around, or something would happen, and I'd kind of get down on myself, something at work, or something with the relationship stuff, or whatever with my husband, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm that, I'm that rotten kid. I'm that little piece of crap that needed to be beat on. And there comes the abuse, all back. So until I learned how to love myself truly and love all the wounded parts of myself and save myself from all that, and do that intermittent meditation stuff with the limbic system, nothing was going to change. Right? That's an amazing program. It's called My Envision Mind, and it's out of Australia. I've talked about it quite a bit, but it really works. But it's not free. I don't know what she charges for it now, but Beverly Searle, her and Kate Mitchell put it together. Kate Mitchell's my friend, who's a retired psychotherapist. It's great to have a retired psychotherapist for a friend. She really helped me out a lot. That's why I talk about her a lot, Kate Mitchell, because she helped me get through the CSA child sexual abuse, which was just amazing. Like I said, I still have some work I want to do. It's all inside meditation stuff with that My Envision Mind program. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to finish the work, right? So, but it's My Envision Mind. I'll pop it in the chat here. It's out of Australia, and it was created by Beverly Searle's the main creator. Kate Mitchell helped her put it together. I think there's an E on the end, Searle, Searle. Beverly Searle is a survivor of horrific abuse, child abuse, and she survived, went on to get degrees and all sorts of stuff, and looking into the issues of psychotherapy and for abuse victims and also for trauma victims. Doesn't even have to be abuse. So this program, My Envision Mind, works for anybody who's survived trauma. Could be anybody who's got, PTSD type issues, CPTSD, any sort of thing, DID, all that kind of stuff. Anybody who's a trauma survivor, doesn't even have to be abuse. People who have survived plane wrecks or wars or, military people, people in hostage situations will have trauma, quite often trauma problems dealing with PTSD and stuff. So, abuse is obviously there with it, right? Does help a lot of people. And it's also for people who have learning disabilities. It works for them too. But it works using the limbic system in the front of the brain here, which uses pictures, not words. So it's so interesting how it works. And it totally helped me out, like I said. But I got in touch with who I was, and that learning how to love myself. People think, oh well, some people would say, do we really need to learn to love ourselves? But for me, it made all the difference because I hated myself. It's not like I'd look in the mirror and just be like, oh, I just hate myself. It wasn't that. It was this internal feeling of I'm worthless, I'm useless, I'm no good. It's all the stuff I heard growing up and all that, and how the abuse made me feel, and I just deserved that, and I deserved all that horrible treatment. I was horrible. I was bad. It messed with my psyche. It messed with my whole spirit, soul, and my whole being. Not just physically. It was just all intertwined there. And so until I really got a hold of all that stuff, started looking at it and realized I'm like, I didn't deserve any of that. And neither did you if you were abused. I'm telling you that right now. So many people just don't want to hear that, but you know what? It's true. It's not your fault. We never deserved that. And so the issue is I had to learn how to love myself really before I could make any headway in this. So I used to write sticky notes, like I said, and stick them all over the place, little sticky notes, and be like, I do count, I do matter. I love myself. Okay. And after a while, I was like, no, it's true. I do count. I do matter. Man, I do love myself. And then if you knew it, I was like, absolutely. Did not deserve that. There's no way, what those people did to me was wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. So Let's see, they say here, we're finishing up this step here. Self-help section. Number 1, this is page 113. Have a celebration or perform some personal ritual to mark formally the completion of your recovery. This is if you're right at the end of your recovery, right? There are endless possibilities for acknowledging this important rite of passage. You could bring together all the people who have supported you during this process and let them know what they meant to you. You could take the vacation of your dreams. If you moved into a new home that reflects the new you could have a housewarming party. Think of something that symbolizes what your recovery has meant to you and find a way of expressing it. One that celebrates this enormous achievement and affirms the person who did it. You. That's awesome. Number 2, how long has it been since you marked the start of your recovery? Go back and reread your journal entry marking this long ago date. What feelings surface as you reread the words that accompany your start on the road to recovery? How many years ago was this? Was the journey worth it? Do you like where you are today relative to yesterday? Make note of today's date and acknowledge your reactions to coming to the end of your recovery. What future directions would the new you like to explore now? And they say, number 3, at this point, you may want to reach out into the community to share your new strengths. If you're attending ASCA meetings, you may want to share your recovery experiences and encourage others who are still on their journeys. One way to deepen your sense of resolution and support others in their efforts to heal is to become a mentor or contact for someone just entering recovery. And you might become more involved with the ASCA in an organizational capacity. You can volunteer with a community hotline that reaches out to parents at risk for abusing their children. You might try your hand at social change by running for the local school board, thereby exercising a healthy expression of power and authority. Any of these activities will affirm the changes that you've made in recovery and will give you the chance to share with others on what you've accomplished. And they're just giving ideas, for people, just to give you sort of an idea of what a person could do, right? You don't have to do any of those things. But the issue is at this point, at the end of your healing journey, we should be feeling strong enough and good enough that we could actually go out and, do this stuff, right? And that we can make a difference. And I think that's the biggest issue. That we do count, we do matter, we can make a difference. Because so many people coming from abuse, not just child abuse, but also domestic violence, with all that low self-esteem stuff, don't see themselves capable or able to even participate in anything. And it's like at this point, step 20, step 21, healing journey stuff, we can go out and prove that that's not true. We have something to offer. You know what I mean? If you're a person on the planet, you do count, you do matter, and you do have something to offer, right? We all have gifts, we all have strengths, and we all have things to share with people. That's what makes the world a wonderful place, right? Number 4, this is the last self-help step you will need in this recovery program. By step 20, helping yourself will be almost second nature. So, professional help section of this. By now, you're probably thinking about terminating your therapy. You have gained the perspective to understand your feelings and reactions to life events and have the capacity to make additional changes as needed. You feel strong, stable, and ready to meet life's challenges. You may well feel that you can be your own therapist now. Nevertheless, the idea of going out on your own may bring up feelings of self-doubt, insecurity, possibly even loss. Don't worry, this is normal, even at the lofty height of step 21. You have benefited greatly from this most unusual professional relationship, and the idea of not having its support may be difficult to accept. You may have grown very fond of your therapist, who has become so much more than a person to whom you tell your problems. So, number 2, this is a professional help. Discuss these feelings and thoughts with your therapist. Be aware that you may have conflicting feelings during this time. Give yourself time to be sure that the decision to terminate is the right one. Many survivors prefer a gradual reduction in sessions over an extended period of time with periodic check-in sessions to reinforce all the positive changes that have been introduced into their lives. Old feelings and reactions often resurface during the major milestones of life, and many survivors want to return to therapy at these times to further resolve or solidify their changes. In most cases, this will be possible. Check with your therapist. This is just it. Like I'm saying, life kind of does have a way of, something coming along that's stressful, uncomfortable, whatever the situation are, horrible. It can kind of bring back some of those feelings. That's the issue. That's what I go through. And it's like, at that point, I have to separate it out and say, okay, wait a minute, that's not from my past. Now is now. The past is the past. And I separate the abuse that I suffered in the past from what's going on today. That's what I'm learning how to do, right? And so that it's not all jumbled up in there, and that was a problem for me for many, many years. So now I'm getting better at it. Do I still have it do I have it totally mastered? No. I don't know if that's possible. I'd like to think it is, to get to that point where it's just like, you know, I can handle anything that comes along. You know what I mean? And the issue is really, truly, we can. We just think that we can't, right? But it's really hard to do it on our own. And that human beings, we're really not meant to be on our own. We're really meant for companionship. That's what humans do best at, right? They do better at. But we have to find people that are trustworthy, right? And that's the issue. Good people that are trustworthy. They're not easy to find. Right? They're really not. And even some trustworthy people will maybe sometimes hurt us. And then we feel bad and we're like, you can't trust anybody. And the issue is that we have to then be trustworthy too. Right? We want people to trust us, then we have to be able to be trusted. Right? That's a huge issue. Treat people how we want to be treated. So all the people that are in my life, my personal life, are really good people. Otherwise they wouldn't be there, because I don't allow rude, hurtful, abusive types around me. So it's kind of like my friends are decent people, right? And I'm not perfect. They're not perfect, right? But this whole idea of this companionship thing, this having some of these solid friendships, whatever it is, whoever these people are in our life, they really help us to get through this stuff. So let's say we're going along, and all of a sudden we have a setback, something horrible. You know what I mean? Suffering on our own, that's no way. That's no way to do it. That's why it's really good to have a good friend, somebody to talk to, you know, somebody just to run this stuff by, so that we don't sit and play those old tapes again and let all this stuff drag us back down again into the dumps, where we used to be, right? It's kind of like I'm getting better at it these days, much, much better at it than I used to, because I used to keep it all to myself and then spiral down, like I said. And now I'm like, no, I just let people know how I'm doing. And if I'm not doing well, I know I've got friends I can call and I can say, man, I'm not doing well today. I'm really not. And I really need somebody to talk to. And if they're not incredibly busy or something, or they'll have to call me back or whatever, they'll talk to me, you know, and they'll listen and they understand, right? Everybody goes through troubles and has problems. That's what life is really full of, unfortunately. And I wish it wasn't, because it would just be so much better if there wasn't all this horrible stuff going on all the time with people. But the issue is that's not reality, not the reality we live in. So it's kind of like we have to learn how to get through this stuff and cope. And that's my biggest thing that I've had to work on, is coping skills. Right. So I'm doing, like I said, much better than I ever have with coping skills, because I'm learning that, you know, I do have rights. I can stand up for myself. And as far as coping with whatever's going on, I know I have resources now that I can resource instead of just trying to do this all on my own. See what I mean? So that's why I think humans need other human beings to, we really do, to get through this stuff. It's really hard to do it on your own. When my husband passed away, I was very much on my own. And not a whole lot of people around. Most of my support's people that live in the States or somewhere else. And it's difficult, but I know at least I have somebody I can call. If I'm having a hard time, even if they don't live in my city, that knows me and loves me and cares about me, and will spend time talking to me, just letting me talk and letting me get out what I need to get out. Right? So important to not do this stuff on your own and just suffer on your own. Terrible, terrible, right? So, we, at this point in our life, things may come back and sort of set us back, like they were saying. We may have issues that cause, our reactions to kind of the old feelings and reactions to resurface at certain times. But that's where we need to have our safety support net around us, of people who care about us and people who want the best for us. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's just so important, right? Because things do come up that are really horrible, no doubt, terrible. Thank you, Tessa. I appreciate it. Well, and I mean, I've always been like that. My family was like that. So I kind of, I'm sure that's just part of my personality, just based on that stuff, having humor, even through the pain. This is it, and I think that's kind of what helped me get through a lot of my stuff growing up. Um, was just kind of laughing about it, and I think that's because it was so tragic that basically we just laughed because it was kind of like we had to do something. You know what I mean? Um, the trauma and stuff that my family went through was just unbelievable. Like I tried to describe it in the books and tried to talk about it, but it's unless you were there just to be able to feel what was going on in the room and the damage, it was just unbelievable, and the dysfunction and the pain was really quite much. And so a lot of times, I mean, all of my family members sort of did that. You used humor to gloss over the horrible pain that was going on around us, even as all the way through our lives, as children, as teens, as 20-year-olds. But I like to laugh, and I enjoy, uh, you know, having fun. I'm not really all that serious of a person, even though I don't come on here too much and joke around. But the thing is like, I'm 55, but I like to have fun, and I still enjoy having fun, and I like to get out and do things. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, we've all been very much, you know, stuck, kind of just not doing much. I'm antsy to get doing something. You know what I mean? And I like to have fun, just like everybody else. So I'm not going to allow myself to grow old and bitter and all of that stuff. And that's what could have happened if I just allowed the abuse to keep destroying me. And this is what happened to my mom. I watched her, just have such a horrible life, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to have fun and I want to enjoy life. And so we have to look for these things, like I said, with whatever we can in our own capacity to find that enjoyment, right? So step 21, this is the last step. It's not even really a step. It says, I am resolved in the reunion of my eternal soul. Step 21 is the last step of this recovery model, but not everyone necessarily reaches it. It is the step that we all strive for as we continue through our lives. If you keep working on your recovery beyond simple survival, you can reach a state of self-acceptance and satisfaction that represents a unique synchrony between your soul, your spiritual essence, and the new self born of your hard work and recovery. Bringing the new you into congruence with your soul's aspirations is the ultimate step because it represents the combined expression of your conscious, unconscious, and spiritual essences. So that's it. That's the book. And well, that's just it. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. You know what I mean? I'm at just at the end, tail end. Who knows how long it'll take, but I'm working on, like I said, on a few things, but I'm feeling pretty good these days. And, as far as self acceptance goes, you know, I still have hard days. Like I said, last week wasn't that good for me. Last Thursday, sort of spent the whole weekend sort of having a horrible, weekend. And it's a shame that I let something like that ruin my weekend. Makes me a little bit mad now because I'm like, okay, I know better than that. You know what I mean? Like that's ridiculous. Self acceptance is probably, like I said, self love, self acceptance is the biggest thing you can do for yourself because growing up abused, our how we see ourselves was mutated. You know what I'm saying? You want to say whatever you want to say about it, it was destroyed, right? So our image was destroyed. The image how we see ourselves, how our abusers saw us, how important people in our life see us. If we don't see ourselves as worthy, it's never going to happen. If we don't see ourselves as lovable or worthy of love, no one else can see that too. You know what I'm saying? We have to we have to be who we are. Am I worthy of love? Absolutely. Am I acceptable? Maybe not to some of the world, but who cares? I'm acceptable to myself. Right? At the end of the day, that's all I can say. We can't please everybody, and we won't please most people. And some people won't even like us. They just won't like us, and some people will hate us for some reason because people are all different, right? And it's like, so at the end of the day, does that really matter? Not really, because I love myself and I care about myself. And so this is the issue. Really, that's the healing from abuse, is to say, you know what? It, yeah, they didn't accept me. They wounded me to the very core and almost killed me, you know? And they created this thing that was ugly, this thing that was, abused. And whatever the abuse was, doesn't matter whether it was, like I said, doesn't matter what type of abuse, it leaves this ugly scar, this ugly stain on our spirit, on our soul, on our psyche, on who we are, right? And it's like, and then our abusers, whoever they were, they got away with that. Even if they didn't get away and they're doing time or whatever, the issue is the damage is done, right? So I had to take a look at that and be like, okay, so they did that, and that's what caused me to feel unacceptable to myself. They didn't accept me, I don't accept me. My parents rejected me, I reject me. You know, my parents hated me, I hate me. My parents tried to destroy me, I tried to destroy me. All I was doing was emulating my abusers. So I'm like, okay, no, I do. I love myself. I really do. All my wounded parts, like I said, I own them all now. And I'm like, hey, that wasn't my fault. I had nothing to do with that. They just chose to treat me like that. And I didn't deserve that. So now what I do is I honor all of my wounded children by loving them, all of them, all the way through. And even my teenagers, all these wounded parts of myself, I honor them and I love them and I care about them. So it doesn't matter now that my abuser didn't care about them because I do. See? And so I got once you get in touch with that stuff and you realize like you do count, you do matter. You did not deserve that abuse. No. And you are a lovely human being. You really are. And you need to believe that yourself. Nobody can do that for you. You are the only one that can do that for yourself. And so that spiritual integration, that part of myself that was so damaged is like comes back around. And with the physical, now I don't see that same image that I used to see. I don't see that thing that they created because I got myself back. You know what I'm saying? Like I know who I am now. And I love myself. And it's such a burn on my abusers. It's not even funny. It's like that's why I say it's like a slap in their face every single day I wake up because I'm like, you know, what a burn on them, because they died in their evil pit of whatever they were doing. And me, I found peace. I found love. I love myself. I love life. I'm really working on things, and hey, not every day is great, but at least I'm working on it. See, not every day is going to be great. We're going to have problems. Things are going to come up, right? So I think it truly is learning how to love yourself. That's really what it all comes down to. Accept yourself, love yourself, where you're at right now in the moment. None of us are perfect. Even the people walking around thinking that they're perfect, they're not perfect. They're just fooling themselves. That's the sad part. They think they're fooling everybody else, but they're really just fooling themselves. There's no such thing. And it's the issue where, even in my imperfections and the mistakes that I'm going to make in the future and, whatever, I'm cool with it. I'm totally cool. I'm like, yeah, it's all right, man. I accept myself. I love myself. And that's the biggest gift I could have ever given to myself. Coming from abuse, absolutely. So you do count, you do matter, and you didn't deserve that. You take really good care of yourself. We'll finish off this show now. And I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you for coming, Tessa, and everybody who's been here popping in. And, thanks for spending this time with me. I appreciate it. And I wish you a good day. Not all of us are going to have a good day, like I said, but I always wish you one anyway. And take really good care of yourself. Have a good weekend. I'll be back on tomorrow with the Survivor Weekend check-in. This is the end of the manual, so this is the end of my daily broadcasting. I won't be doing any more live streaming daily, but I'll always be around. Like I'll be doing Saturdays, the Survivor Weekend check-in, and a couple of the biblical stuff in the evenings. And I'll probably do some stuff for April Child Abuse Awareness Month because I usually do. I tend to do a couple videos during that time because it's always important to me for that month to really keep my voice out there. So, but I appreciate you being part of this with me and joining me here in the mornings. Um, I hope it's been useful, some help, even if nothing else, just that you would get out of it that you do count, you do matter, and that you didn't deserve any of that abuse. You deserve so much better. So did I, right? And we have to be good to ourselves. That's just it. We have to be good to ourselves, you know. And we can't expect somebody else to make these changes for us. We have to do it ourselves. It's a lot of work, but like I said, we deserve so much better. So, in there, don't give up. Not ever. If you need resources or help or anything, if I can help you with finding stuff or whatever, just get a hold of me. My stuff's in the about section there, and we'll see you tomorrow. Survivor Weekend check-in. Take good care. Have a good weekend. I'm going to try. Let's all try to do something nice for ourselves, right? First of all, I'm going to start with this hug, and I'm going to enjoy my day regardless of how it goes. And I'm going to try to do something nice this weekend. Maybe do some guitar practice or just do something fun, right? Shouldn't be all about just sad stuff or down stuff or depressing stuff. We got to go out and enjoy our day while we have them, right? And whatever that means for you, taking a walk, reading a book, whatever it is, let's all try to do something good for ourselves, right? So we'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye bye.